Nefer is out, and I'm gonna share with you all the important things you need to know to best build her, from her kit, her best equipment and teams. I'll share with you all the precious intel I've got on Nefer, so sit back, relax, hit the like button, and let's get to you building the best Nefer possible. First, to understand Nefer, we need to begin with her skill. Casting it will cause Nefer to rush forward, deal a hit of damage, and enter the Shadow Dance state. The casting of her skill converts Nefer's charge attacks into a special version called Phantasm Performance. Nefer performs Phantasm Performance by consuming one Verdant Dew to create shades of herself to deal a very mesmerizing, coordinated attack against enemies. Nefer can charge attack thrice within her skill, but seeing as she has 2 skills, this doubles to 6. Beyond this, there's a whole host of important mechanics you must know about her charge attack. For one, it directly deals Lunar Bloom damage, but interestingly, it's not Nefer herself that deals Lunar Bloom damage, rather it's the shades that do so. Adding further peculiarities is that Nefer and her shades have separate scalings. Nefer's portion of the attack scales off of her attack, with a much larger portion scaling off her EM, whereas the shades purely are based on EM, making EM a vital stat of Nefer's. With such a powerful charge attack to output the greatest DPS, you only want a normal attack if you lack a Verdant Dew. Otherwise, you should spam Nefer's charge attacks, which her kit enables you to do so. After charge attacking, when Lunar Bloom is triggered, for every 100 points of Nefer's EM that is above 500, she gains additional Verdant Dew, ensuring you have Verdant Dew when you need it. Then comes Nefer's Ascended Gleam mechanic, which I'm not gonna lie, is kinda crazy. The best way I can describe it is as controversial as while it certainly has major benefits, it too has notable changes. Upon using her skill, any present or future Dendro cores will be converted to Seeds of Deceit. In the instances that Nefer charge attacks, she will absorb these Seeds of Deceit, granting her stacks a Veil of Falsehood, granting Nefer a variety of highly valuable buffs like increased charge attack damage, higher burst damage, and an extra 100 EM bonus when gaining 3 stacks of Deceit. These buffs are amazing, but they do come at a price. When Dendro cores are turned into Seeds of Deceit, they cannot be used for Hyper Bloom Burgeon, nor will they eventually burst for Bloom damage. They can only be consumed by Nefer. Still, while this does restrict your team to purely Lunar Bloom reactions, this ensures that Nefer will have the Seeds of Deceit to gain all of these buffs and even improve her burst, as her burst consumes all of the Veil of Falsehoods Nefer has to increase its damage. Oddly though, Nefer's burst does not deal Lunar Bloom damage, it only deals standard Dendro damage. When you begin to level her talents, first prioritize her skill to buff her special charge attacks. As for her burst, this will largely depend on you. Its damage is not big to where you could outright ignore it and you'd be totally fine, thus you can keep it at level 1, but if you want to use it, or like me, if you feel weird to only level up one of her talents, you'd then prioritize her burst. Now that you know how to play Nefer, let's move on to the build portion of the video, starting off with Nefer's best weapons. Nefer's situation with Catalyst is admittedly a little weird, as you'll see very soon, but there is light to this tunnel. To keep things simple, I'll rank each option from best to worst, and at number 1, to no surprise, is Nefer's signature weapon. Aside from having the highest style points, this Catalyst also packs some, frankly, ludicrous buffs, from crits like its insane 88% crit damage to EM on top of this to bring about extremely high damage. It's because of this perfect blend of crit and EM that her signature surpassed all other catalysts by a noticeable margin. At second place, we've got Laoma's signature. Though Laoma no doubt wants her own signature, it is equally as strong on Nefer, thanks to the catalyst Lunar Bloom bonus. The next best choice is Nahida's 1000 Floating Dreams. It's kinda sad this Dendro Munchkin is losing everything from her place in the meta to now her signature, but admittedly you'll forget about the guilt when you see the nice damage her catalyst enables for. Now, you're probably seeing a theme with all my findings, and that is that Nefer desperately wants Elemental Mastery, because Nefer wants to trigger Lunar Blooms, but also because her shade damage is completely comprised of EM. Attack catalysts are virtually useless on her, limiting her weapon choices to a great degree, and the same thing somewhat follows for crit catalysts. For example, behind Nahida's signature weapon rank Nevalet's and Mualani's signature, but much to my surprise, you're better off keeping them with their owners and opting instead for Nefer's 4-star weapons, of which are thankfully really good, like the new Dawning Frost and Nefer's weapon banner. If you couldn't pull Nefer's weapon but got this, you shouldn't feel too bad since it is exceptional on her. It's just like her signature, having that nice combo of crit and EM, and better yet, if you can refine it to R5, it outputs damage to that of 5 stars and actually becomes Nefer's second best catalyst. If you weren't lucky enough or like the Primos to pull on the weapon banner, there's always the craftable Black Marrow Lantern as more than a solid choice. At R1 it's barely weaker than the R1 Frost, but at R5 it is significantly weaker than an R5 Frost. Overall, I wouldn't recommend getting the Lantern to R5 since its damage boost is very small. At third, as a big surprise, was the Sacrificial Fragments. And an unfortunate spot is the Witch Sith. It can be extremely powerful if you get the big EM bonus from its passive, but of course this is tied to luck, which heavily negates the strength of the Witch Sith. At dead last is the Mappa Mare. If you're just starting the game and looking for a weapon, you have 3 good options in the Emerald Orb and Magic Guide for Elemental Mastery, or the Twin Nephrite for crit. Next up, let's break down all of Nefer's highest damaging sets and rank each of them in terms of strength. But before I share with you my calculations, I just ask that you take a quick second to like the video and possibly subscribe. This helps me out a great deal and really does mean a lot. But back to the video, the absolute strongest set for Nefer is the new Night of the Skies Unveiling, giving her EM for personal and reaction damage, massive crit rate, and of course, a direct lunar reaction buff. All of these benefits amount to the highest possible damage for Nefer, while making building her very easy. As such, I cannot recommend Skies Unveiling enough since it really does wonders for Nefer. But remarkably, while Skies Unveiling is no doubt perfect, there exists another artifact that's very competitive to it, sharing much of its strength, Marechaussee Hunter. Remember, Nefer wants to constantly charge attack, meaning that Hydra supports locked to normal attacks like Yalan or Xingqiu don't really work all that good with Nefer, elevating Furina's unrestricted Hydra application as one of the best. Then take into account the charge attack bonus from the set and its massive crit rate, even higher than that of the Sky's 30%, and you've got an artifact that, while weaker to the Sky's Unveiling, is very close to it and is more than viable as an alternative. At third, we've got Gilded. Behind the Gilded is two pieces of EM. The damage of this combo was remarkably very close to that of Gilded Dreams. And finally is 4 Wanderer's Troop. These are all the sets you should consider giving to your Nefer, but equally as important is the sets that you give to her teammates, since there is also some very powerful artifacts that can be a game changer to Nefer's damage. As always, 4 Deepwood is a must-have to massively shred opponent's danger res, granting Nefer a major damage boost. Another key set like 4 Deepwood is the recently released Silken Moon Serenade. It will raise Nefer's EM by a very nice 120 EM, which is definitely nothing to scoff at. These 2 sets alone will be great in terms of elevating Nefer's DPS significantly, but if possible, you can bestow even more damage to Nefer through 4 Instructor. Though a 4-star, it's effectively another version of Silken Moon Serenade. If you can run this set in addition to the other 2, your Nefer will be insane. If you're just starting out in the game and can't use any of these artifacts, you should then opt to equip or mix and match any sets like 4 Sojourner, Instructor, or Berserker to raise Nefer's crit and EM. As for main stats, run EM on the Sands and on the Goblet, and with a crit rate circlet. Yes, the percentage of getting 2 EM stats are kinda diabolical, but given just how vital EM is on Nefer, you need to run this combination. With these stats, aim for the substats of both crits, EM, attack percentage, and lastly, energy recharge. With her build covered, let's shift over to Nefer's constellations, and I'm glad to report that Nefer has some really strong constellations, and this even includes her beginning constellations like C1. C1 buffs the Lunar Bloom that will occur from her charge attacks by 60% of her EM stat, and this is furthered by her Veil of Falsehood. Considering all the EM Nefer will have in her build, this equates to a very nice damage gain. Another really good damage gain unlocks with her C2. This constellation buffs her Veil of Falsehood mechanic, buffing its duration and max stacks to 5. Once more, her charge attacks are buffed, dealing even more damage, up to 140% of its original damage. Plus, when Nefer casts her skill, she outright gets 2 stacks of Veil, and when she reaches its max, she will get a buff of 200 EM. Moving over to C4, it's not as strong of a constellation as C1 or C2, but instead is a very handy one. In the Shadow Dance state, Nefer gains 25% Verdant 2, so charge attacks will be more frequent and more reliable to cast, and on top of this, C4 gives an inherent 20% danger res shred. Last and never least, we come to her C6, and though it may lack a wall of text, it's still a brain-dead strong constellation. So when Nefer charge attacks, an extra hit of Dendro damage will be dealt that's based off 85% of her EM. Then when Nefer can no longer charge attack anymore, another instance of EM based damage will occur that's 120% of her EM. And of course, what makes this constellation truly broken is that all of these hits are considered Lunar Bloom hits, so they will be very high hitting attacks. Finally, let's go over some great teams to play Nefer in. Arguably, the best team that Nefer currently has begins with Lauma. Lauma is broken with all Dendro units, but especially with Nefer, and is a must-have on all of her teams. Her ability to trigger off-field Lunar Blooms will surpass all other Dendro supports and elevate Nefer by a crazy margin, but beyond dealing Lunar Blooms, Lauma adds all kinds of buffs to the Lunar reaction, adding another layer of damage gain to herself and Nefer. With her in the team, Ascendant Gleam will already be activated, giving you the freedom of using any strong character you can, regardless of where they come from. A top choice of such a character is Farina. Her Hydra minions will make creating blooms and seeds of deceit very easy, but beyond this, Farina will make great use of Lauma's Hydra Shred, adding a notable portion of damage to the team. To complete the team, it's best that you run a healer. Here you can use whomever you please, but a strong option would be Kokumi. This team stands as one of Nefer's premium compositions, but if like me you don't have Lauma, you can still create an effective team with more free-to-play options, beginning with Nahida. Now for sure, while Nahida is no Lauma, Nahida has her own unique strengths that bring about a whole other set of benefits that Lauma does not have. Aside from being a great holder for Deepwood, Nahida can increase the team's EM through her burst, giving a significant damage boost to both herself and Nefer's overall damage. Alongside Nahida, you can play Aino, who perfectly fits the bill as a Hydra support Nefer needs. Aino's burst will passively apply Hydra regardless of what attacks you deal, so dishing out Nefer's charge attacks will be no problem at all. At the third slot, ideally you would run a healer or a shielder like Baiju, but if you want to go all out in terms of damage, you could add a Dendro sub DPS, a good option being the Dendro Traveler. Well everyone, this is my Nefer guide. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions on her, be sure to ask me in the comments. Thanks for watching.